International. You will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers on the launch of the zinc and lead mine in Wad Amizour and the progress of the mining railway project for the Bled al-Hadba, Wad al-Kibrit and Naba port line. Entrusted by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the State Minister in charge of the Foreign Affairs and National Community abroad, Ahmed Attaf, is taking part in Tunis and in the ministerial meeting of the three-party mechanisms of Libya's neighbouring countries, namely Algeria, Tunisia and Egypt. And as the Israeli authorities are considering expanding Jewish settlement building in the West Bank, the occupying army has pursued its acts of aggression against the Gaza Strip, killing one Palestinian near Gaza City. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm your host, Miriam Bershi. The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers. Mr. Chalfi has the details.
The meeting examined presentations on the launch of the zinc and lead mine in Wad Amizour and on monitoring the progress made as part of the mining railway project for Bled al-Hadba, Wad al-Kibrit and Naba port line intended for the transport of extracted and produced phosphates and fertilizers. Following the presentation of the agenda items and the Prime Minister's report on the government's activity over the past 2 weeks, the President of the Republic instructed the Prime Minister to closely monitor the implementation of the decisions of the Council of Ministers and the government. The President approved a financial support for Algerian pilgrims this year amounting to 10 million centimes, reducing the total cost to 82 million centimes instead of 92 million centimes. Regarding the launch of the zinc and lead mine in Wad Amizour, he stressed the need for this promising economic project to be launched in March 2026, given the job opportunities and economic benefits it will provide for the region in particular and for Algeria in general. Regarding the mining railway project for the Bled al-Hadba, Wad al-Kibrit and Naba port line, the President said the state investment in the mining sector aims to strengthen the national economy, instructed the Minister of Public Works to submit monthly progress reports, stressed completion by the end of 2026 and operation in early 2027 to boost fertilizer production, and called for close monitoring and accelerated work. Regarding the mining dock as part of the expansion of the port of Annaba, the President ordered coordination between the sectors of public works, interior, transport and the foreign partner to accelerate the pace of work and complete the project by the end of 2026 as part of the strategy of economic transformation and reducing dependence on hydrocarbons. Regarding the 2026 fisheries roadmap, the President said that developing fisheries and aquaculture is a national priority for food security, calling for increased production, continued state support, fishermen's federation involvement in decisions, and modern mechanization in reforestation with a focus on high-yield trees such as argan. Regarding the national football team's participation in the recent African Cup of Nations, the President tasked the Minister of Sport with conveying his congratulations to the team and staff led by coach Vladimir Petkovic, wishing them success in the upcoming World Cup, and paid special tribute to Algerian supporters, especially diaspora fans who traveled from abroad to cheer the team.
Entrusted by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the State Minister in charge of the Foreign Affairs and the National Community abroad, Ahmed Attaf, is taking part in Tunis in the ministerial meeting of the three-party mechanisms of Libya's neighbouring countries, namely Algeria, Tunisia and Egypt. The meeting is part of regular consultations held between the three countries on the developments in Libya. It also focused on assisting prospects to the political settlement process initiated by or in Libya under the auspices of the UN in respect of the country's unities and sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Minister of State in charge of hydrocarbons and mine, Mohamed Al-Qab, is on a visit to the Republic of Niger to examine Sonatrach's activities in that country, in particular the follow-up on the group's research and exploration project in the Kafra Old Field. The Minister of State, accompanied by a delegation, will also hold meetings with Niger's officials to examine the project or the progress made as part of the Trans-Saharan Gas Pipeline project and discussed ways to strengthen coordination and consultation mechanisms between the various stakeholders of the project. Mr. Arqab is accompanied by the CEO of the Sonatrach Group, Nurdin Dawoodi, CEO of Sonatrach's International Production Exploration Corporation, CPEX, a subsidiary of Sonatrach International Holding Corporation, Bouarara Cherif, as well as several ministry officials. Later on, in charge of hydrocarbons and mines, Minister Mohamed Arqab has held talk with his Niger's counterpart, Hamadou Tini. The Minister of Justice, Keeper of the Seals, Lotfi Boujemha, is taking part in the first edition of the Doha Legal Forum held in Qatar under the theme Emerging Trends and Forward-Looking Visions. The two-day forum, organized by the Qatari Ministry of Justice in coordination with the International Court of Qatar and the Disputes Resolution Center, brings together lawyers, policymakers and experts from around the world to discuss legal and regulatory frameworks related to investment, emerging technologies, governance issues, and investment dispute resolution mechanisms. The forum will also highlight the legislative and institutional procedures taken to address legal challenges that may impact investment flows in order to strengthen confidence in the business climate and support the process of sustainable development and economic transformation. The event aims to work out recommendations that contribute to the development of legislation in line with international standards, support domestic and foreign investment, resolve legal challenges related to the digital transformation and artificial intelligence, strengthen the principles of governance and transparency, and developing legal frameworks for the finance, energy and business sectors, thereby creating a stable and reliable business climate. The Minister of Justice, Mr. Lotfi Boujemha, was later on received by his Qatari counterpart, the Minister of Justice of the State of Qatar and Minister of State for Cabinet Affairs, Mr. Ibrahim bin Ali bin Isa Al Hassan Al Mohammedi, in the presence of the Algerian ambassador to the State of Qatar, Mr. Salih Hajia. During the meeting, they examined the bilateral relations in the legal and judicial fields, as well as mechanisms to strengthen and develop cooperation between the two countries. The meeting was part of the Algerian Ministers of Justice's official visit to the brotherly state of Qatar at the head of a large delegation on the occasion of his participation in the first edition of the Doha Forum on Law under the theme Emerging Trends and Future Prospects. Algeria's significant progress in combating violence against women and girls has been highlighted during a meeting dedicated to the presentation of a report on the issue. More details in this report by Masoud Sharfi.
The report, initiated in line with the guidelines given by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, focused on the second stage of the project, supporting Algeria's response efforts in combating violence against women and girls, worked out by the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, in Algeria, and the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. Addressing the meeting, the representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Fethi Mitrif, praised the results of this project, noting that they reflect a significant leap achieved by Algeria in combating violence against women and girls. He said the project contributed to strengthening sector capacities and coordination to combat violence against women and girls, reaffirming the state's commitment through the joint UNFPA-UNODC project, supported by the government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, while highlighting Algeria's legal and institutional achievements in protecting women and children. The head of the UNFPA office in Algeria, Faiza Bendris, for her part, praised the project's very positive results in protecting women and girls and commended the President for prioritizing it and urging sectors to intensify efforts. In the same context, Mr. Yassine Biljbel, representative of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Algeria, praised the report for reflecting Algeria's major efforts to protect women and girls from violence and highlighted the UN's role in providing expertise and training. The resident coordinator for the United Nations in Algeria, Ms. Savina Claudia Amassar, also hailed the report, saying it reveals Algeria's strengthened capacities to combat violence against women and girls.
And as the Israeli authorities are considering expanding Jewish settlement building in the West Bank, the occupying army has proceeded attacks on aggression or of aggression against the Gaza Strip, killing one Palestinian near Gaza City. Medical sources said the youngster was shot dead by the Israeli soldiers in the northeastern part of the city and another Palestinian injured near the southern town of Khan Yunis. This came as the Médecins Sans Frontières denounced the pressure exerted by the Israeli occupying authorities, who blocked the entry of the organization's personnel into Gaza, as well as the funding of its equipment. I invite you now to listen to our weekly program, The Health Magazine, presented by my colleague Mohamed Khatil on autism.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. What is autism? Autism is a complex neurobehavioral condition that includes impairments in social integration and development, language and communication skills, combined with rigid and repetitive behaviors. Because of the range of symptoms, this condition is now called Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD. It covers a large spectrum of symptoms, skills and levels of impairment. ASD ranges in severity from a handicap that somewhat limits an otherwise normal life to a devastating disability that may require institutional care. Children with autism have trouble communicating. They have trouble understanding what other people think and feel. This makes it very hard for them to express themselves, either with words or through gestures, facial expressions, and touch. A child with ASD who is very sensitive may be greatly troubled, sometimes even pained by sounds, touches, smells, or sights that seem normal to others. Children who are autistic may have repetitive, stereotyped body movements such as rocking, pacing, or hand flapping. They may have unusual responses to people, attachments to objects, resistance to change in their routines, or aggressive or self-injurious behavior. At times, they may seem not to notice people, objects, or activities in their surroundings. Some children with autism may also develop seizures, and in some cases, those seizures may not occur until adolescence. Some people with autism are cognitively impaired to a degree, in contrast to some typical cognitive impairment, which is characterized by relatively even delays in all areas of development. People with autism show uneven skill development. They may have problems in certain areas, especially the ability to communicate and relate to others, but they may have unusually developed skills in other areas, such as drawing, creating music, solving math problems, or memorizing facts. For this reason, they may test higher, perhaps even in the average or above average range on nonverbal intelligence tests. In Algeria, some statistics showed about 80,000 children are suffering from autism. The number of associations dedicated to autism, which emerged in the last 3 years, are insufficient for the large increase in this disorder. According to specialists, Algeria has gone from 1 birth out of 1,000 a few years ago to an autistic for 67 births. And with this, we come to the end of this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. Don't forget to join us next week for a fresh edition of our program. Until then, have a good time, Radio Algeria International, and goodbye.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Today, as the United Nations Security Council meets in New York to confront yet another global crisis, familiar divisions remind us how fragile international consensus can be. But beyond the Security Council lies a broader forum, one where every nation has a voice and an equal vote. That forum is the United Nations General Assembly. In this edition of Echoes of Time, we explore how the General Assembly was born from the ashes of war, how it became the world's most inclusive diplomatic stage, and why 8 decades on, its role remains essential in shaping global dialogue.
To travel back in time and learn about the most prominent events that marked human history, no need for a time machine. Echoes of Time, with our colleague Mariam Bershi is your only address. A program broadcast to you every week on Radio Algeria International.
The United Nations General Assembly stands as the world's parliament, a unique forum where all 193 member states gather with equal voice, one nation, one vote, to deliberate global challenges, craft policies, and champion collective action. As we mark its 18th anniversary in 2026, this narrative traces its origins amid World War II's ashes, its birth through wartime vision, its evolving purpose, shifting venues, landmark triumphs, and deep Arab engagements. It evokes the fragile optimism of a post-war era forged in London's modest halls and New York's rising towers that still shapes our multipolar world today, for climate crises to AI ethics. The General Assembly emerges from the rubble of World War II, which claimed over 70 to 85 million lives, according to UN and historical estimates, and exposed humanity's capacity for industrialized horror from the atomic shadows over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, killing between 140,000 and 226,000 people, to the devastation of entire civilian populations, such as the siege of Leningrad, where more than 1 million people perished through starvation, bombardments, and isolation. The League of Nations, established in 1919 after World War I to prevent repetition, had collapsed by April 1946 amid glaring failures. It ignored Japan's 1931 invasion of Manchuria, Italy's 1935 conquest of Ethiopia, and Hitler's aggressions proving too weak without enforcement power. World leaders, scared but resolute, sketched a bolder successor during pivotal wartime summits. The 1941 Atlantic Charter, signed by US President Franklin Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, pledged self-determination and freedom from fear and want. The 1943 Tehran Conference, with Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, outlined a post-war organization, while the 1944 Dumbarton Oaks talks in Washington, D.C. detailed its structure, proposing the General Assembly as the town meeting of the world. Yalta in February 1945 refined voting rules and cemented the UN's institutional skeleton. These efforts reflected a shift peace through inclusive dialogue rather than an exclusive great power dominance. Why create it? To foster enduring peace, security and cooperation through universal representation. Unlike the veto-wielding Security Council, limited to 15 members, the Assembly grants every state an equal say on war prevention, human rights, decolonization, poverty eradication, health crises, and sustainable development. Its powers include debating any international issue, issuing recommendations, approving the budget, electing non-permanent Security Council members, and admitting new states. This vision crystallized in the words "We the Peoples" opening the UN Charter, drafted by delegates from 50 nations at the April to June 1945 San Francisco Conference, ratified on October 24, 1945, now observed as UN Day by 51 founding members, including the 5 permanent Security Council powers: China, France, the USSR, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The Charter entered into force on June 26, following key ratifications. Among the signatories was the Saudi Arabian delegation, led by Prince Faisal Al Saud, representing King Abdulaziz, who advocated strongly for the voices of developing nations. Creation unfolded swiftly after victory. A preparatory commission chaired by Colombia's Eduardo Zuleta Angel convened in London in November 1945 to organize committees and procedural rules. The inaugural session opened on January 10, 1946, not in grandeur, but in modest surroundings, at London's Methodist Central Hall, just steps from Westminster Abbey. Acting Secretary-General Gladwin Jebb called the meeting to order. Belgium's Paul-Henri Spaak narrowly defeated Norway's Trygve Lie, later the first full Secretary-General, by 28 votes to 23 to become Assembly President. All 51 founding states attended, adopting provisional rules, establishing 6 main committees and setting an agenda amid Europe's reconstruction and the early tensions of the Cold War. The second session began on October 23, 1946, at Flushing Meadows Corona Park in New York, a former World's Fair site, inside a repurposed ice rink and auditorium. Permanence took root when on December 14th, the Assembly accepted John Rockefeller Jr.'s $8.5 million gift for a 17-acre site along Manhattan's East River, equivalent to roughly $130 million today. Chosen over European candidates such as Geneva, the site symbolized US support and global centrality. Construction began in 1948 and the iconic headquarters opened in 1952. Early sessions launched core institutions, establishing the World Health Organization in 1948, funding UNICEF for war orphans, and approving the statute of the International Court of Justice. From these modest beginnings, achievements multiplied across decades, demonstrating the Assembly's enduring influence despite the non-binding nature of its resolutions. In health and humanitarian action, the Assembly paved major milestones. The World Health Organization eradicated smallpox by 1980, saving an estimated 300 million lives, and continues to combat HIV, polio, and COVID-19. UNICEF, formalized in 1946, has vaccinated billions of children worldwide and helped reduce global under-5 mortality by 59% since 1990. In Human Rights and Self-Determination, Resolution 181 of November 29, 1947, recommended partitioning British Mandate Palestine into Jewish and Arab states. Accepted by Jewish leaders and rejected by Arab states, it triggered the 1948 war while embedding the principle of self-determination into international debate. The 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, chaired by Eleanor Roosevelt, became a cornerstone of international law, shaping more than 80 national constitutions and countless treaties. Decolonization accelerated dramatically during the 1960 Year of Africa, when 17 newly independent states joined the Assembly. By 1965, UN membership had doubled. The 1974 Declaration on a New International Economic Order challenged structural inequalities between North and South. More recently, the Sustainable Development Goals adopted in 2015 helped lift approximately 1.1 billion people out of extreme poverty by 2024. Peacekeeping expanded from the first observer missions in Palestine in 1948 to more than 70 operations, deploying roughly 70,000 personnel today. In the present era, the General Assembly remains a central forum for global crises. Recent sessions addressed the situation in Ukraine in 2022, repeated calls for ceasefires in Gaza between 2023 and 2025, as well as conflicts in Sudan and elsewhere. New challenges have emerged, including artificial intelligence governance and climate finance, reflected in landmark resolutions adopted in 2024, underscoring the Assembly's adaptability in a multipolar world. Arab countries have played a significant role within the Assembly since its inception, balancing pan-Arab solidarity with strategic global engagement through the Arab League, founded in 1945. 7 Arab states were among the original signatories in San Francisco, Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia and Syria in 1945, followed by Jordan and Libya in 1955. Subsequent waves included Sudan and Tunisia, followed by Kuwait and Algeria on October 8, 1962, following independence, as well as the Gulf states during the early 1970s. Palestine obtained observer status in 1974 through the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, and was upgraded to non-member observer state status in 2012. Some key moments define Arab engagement, such as the collective rejection of the 1947 partition plan, which led to war, yet was followed by sustained advocacy. In 1974, Yasser Arafat's address to the Assembly elevated the Palestinian cause globally. Algeria hosted the 1974 special session on raw materials, while Saudi Arabia under King Faisal championed all equity and economic sovereignty in the 1970s. Kuwait emerged as a leading advocate of development aid. Divisions surfaced at times, including Saudi Arabia's refusal of a Security Council seat in 2013 over Syria. Yet unity reappeared in resolutions on Gaza, Western Sahara and Yemen. Over 8 decades, Arab states have steered more than 40 resolutions related to Palestine alone, advocating great power, rivalries while asserting collective agency. From London's echoing halls to New York's glass tower, the General Assembly endured imperfect and constrained yet indispensable. 80 years on, it remains a forum where the world argues